Good afternoon, Norman. Thanks for joining us. Coming up on Norman Today, we'll tell you what cable deregulation will mean for the city of Norman.
And we'll tell you how the opening of a new museum will affect Norman's economy.
And in sports, the OU baseball team suffered its second straight loss last night at home at Eldell Mitchell Baseball Park.
Will the clouds ever clear out? Stay tuned for weather.
More news, weather, and sports
coming up in the next half hour of Norman Today.
Switch traffic. All right, we're ready to come back in. Ready, BT2. Take it.
Welcome to Norman Today for Wednesday, March 31st. I'm Zach Stevens.
And I'm Lisa Lewis. Today marks the end of regulation of cable prices by the government. The Telecommunications Act of 1996 set today as a deadline for removing nearly all governmental price controls. Nationally, companies are already announcing cable rate increases averaging 5%. Here in Norman, Multimedia Cable is not expected to raise its cable rates due to the regulation. Jim Back, Marketing Director of Multimedia, says that rate increases are evaluated on a year-to-year basis. The next scheduled evaluation for a rate increase will be March of next year. Currently, Norman customers are paying around $23 for basic cable service. And if your car has ever stalled in the flooded intersection of McGee and Lindsay, you'll be glad to hear that the City of Norman is fixing the problem. Phase 1 of the McGee Street construction will begin on Monday. When it rains, the area can flood and make car travel a hazard and an inconvenience. But Jim Berry, Director of Public Works, says the current drainage systems are inadequate, and Phase 1 of the three-phase project will implement storm sewers to gather and transport floodwaters to Imhoff Creek. The project should be completed by the end of the year.
In campus news, students at the University of Oklahoma are heading to the polls today to vote in a runoff election for campus leaders. Students will elect the new Housing Center Student Association President and the UOSA President and Vice President. Jeb Boatman and Cassie Zaccarello are running against Rakesh Patel and Chris Kennedy for UOSA President and Vice President. Kendrick Bailey and Anu Puglia are campaigning for the HCSA President. Polls open at 8 a.m. and close at 6 p.m. And in state news, a human limb was discovered Tuesday morning by a soldier picking up trash at Fort Sill. The lower leg and foot was found in a shallow grave in a wooded area on the Army's post west side. Military police used dogs to search for additional bodies or body parts, but none were found, an investigator said. A Fort Sill spokesman said investigators believe the limb had been buried by another person and might have been partially uncovered by recent rains. The Post Criminal Investigation Division and military police are handling the case as a homicide.
And an eye on crime today, an Oklahoma attorney who allegedly molested 3 young girls was charged with 2 additional crimes yesterday. Grover Miskovsky was charged with 1 count of indecent exposure and 1 count of sexual battery. Miskovsky was arrested on March 19th. He was initially charged with racketeering and 11 sex crimes, as well as concealing stolen property. Attorney Paul Streck, Miskovsky's partner, is trying to get $1 million bond lowered. The state Supreme Court suspended Miskovsky's license to practice law until further court proceedings. And in Oklahoma legislation, a bill passed by the Oklahoma Senate would allow motorists to get vehicle inspections every 2 years instead of the current yearly inspections. The fee for 2-year inspections would be $10, double the current $5 charge for a 1-year inspection. Sponsors of the bill hope it will encourage more businesses to offer vehicle inspection services. The bill has raised some safety and environmental concerns, such as violating federal air quality standards.
With a little less than a year until the opening of the Sam Noble Museum of Natural History, city leaders are getting excited and are expecting positive economic results. Norman Today's Elizabeth Fielle has the story.
Norman city leaders are expecting the Sam Noble Museum of Natural History to have positive impacts on the community. Assistant to the city manager, Todd Jensen, says it will bring thousands of visitors that otherwise would not be visiting Norman. More visitors mean more money.
So if you're, anticipating 100,000 visitors, half being, during the day and half staying overnight, you're looking at a substantial amount of economic impact. And that just, is directly. That doesn't mean necessarily indirectly.
The Visitors Bureau, Dana Fabel, says that in the last year, reported day trippers were spending an average of $62 to $65. When visitors stayed overnight, spending increased to $130. So now, with the new Museum of Natural History,
have an economic impact, a very positive economic impact. We don't know to the extent yet. We'll take some track record and some history before we know that.
have on the community, as well as try and eliminate the only negative concern, which will be the traffic on Chautauqua Street.
Again, in cooperation with OU and also the state, is we're building a street. We're going to rebuild the street, Chautauqua Avenue from Highway 9 to Timberdale. It's going to have landscaping, historic lights. We're going to bury some telephone and power lines.
And with all this hard work going into the preparation for the new museum, there's hope that the attraction will create a spillover effect for other businesses.
That helps restaurants, that helps retail, that helps service industries. So, again, it's really hard to quantify.
Because once we get them to the museum, we want to be able to educate them that there's more to see and do outside of the museum.
The museum is still not expected to open until the beginning of next year. Elizabeth Fielle, Norman Today.
And a museum in Guthrie is home to some famous flames. Ted Ballard and his wife ran over more than 7,000 lighters at the National Lighter Museum. He says man has always been fascinated with fire, and his interest in the flame makers began when he was 6. He also says lighters reflect the social and technical environment of their time. Some lighters are collectible because they belong to a celebrity, but Ballard says it's a lighter's place in history that makes it valuable. Coming up next on Norman Today, Amy Balenger will tell us what to expect for the first days of April.
Stay with us.
Kids. For 1 hour a week, you leave your concrete world of flip phones and faxes and talk to 20 kids about how business works. They will question everything, but those 20 kids will talk to 20 more. So by Saturday, what you said on Thursday could be halfway around their world. You get to make a difference. Could just make the rest of your week pretty dull. That's the new JA, teaching kids how business works.
We want to see our children succeed, but setting easy goals for our kids creates the toughest obstacle they'll ever face, because succeeding in the real world isn't easy. Help the effort to raise standards in America's public schools. Call 1-800-96-PROMISE.
Welcome back to Norman Today Weather.
So Amy, tell us what it's going to look like for the first part of April.
First part of April is going to look pretty good if you're going to do anything this afternoon. But as you come to the first weekend of April, it's not going to look so good unless you're into the lightning and then maybe a possible storm chase or two. But as you look outside the current temperature, you're going to see it's at 63 degrees and that humidity is staying up there pretty high at 79%. The pressure's at 29.83 inches and falling. Winds are out of the south at 18 miles an hour. As you move to the almanac, you're going to see that their average low for today is 44, average high is 67. That seems pretty warm for beginning of April, but yesterday's low was 41, right about average. This morning's low was 54 degrees. That is extremely warm, and that was due to the cloud cover and the precipitation that happened late last night. Yesterday's high was 64, and today's predicted high is 68 degrees. To move the algae report, you're going to have trees and grasses In the moderate category also is mold, but weed has moved into the low category, so sneezing, hopefully not a problem for most people in Oklahoma. Move to the satellite, you're going to see that out to the west, it's clear skies. There's a dry line setting up, which means that the moisture is very low in the atmosphere in the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma. You move to the east, you're going to have cloud cover that's in the low to middle parts of the sky, not that high up there, so it's going to take a little while to break off. As you go into the surface, you're going to see that there's a low pressure system moving across. It's going to remain more or less to our north, and behind it there's colder air. Also to the north, colder Arctic air is coming behind the warm front, and with that is expected 2 to 3 inches of snow for the northern plains. Over there, down in that southeast corner of the United States, that low that brought most of the precip is still remaining, and with that, it's going to make the temperatures quite cool for the area. You see 60s in parts of Tennessee and South Carolina in the 50s. Over to the west, not looking any better. They have temperatures as high today in the 30s in parts of Nevada and Oregon, and up there in the Pacific Northwest, the precip is going to be coming through because there's a very intense system off to the southern California area, and that is predicted to move across quite quickly, which is going to bring with it some of the showers. If you look across Oklahoma, you're going to see that it's not all that bad for parts of Oklahoma. Down to the south, where the cloud cover is breaking up quicker, they're going to have high temperatures with Lawton at 73. Up to the northeast, they're going to have lower temperatures because the clouds are remaining over highs of 71 in Tulsa. Tonight, though, the clouds are going to break out, or you're going to break out of the clouds, and you're going to have lows that are going to remain quite high. Lawton at 54 over there in McAllister. Low temperature tonight is 60 degrees. Afternoon clearing, the clouds will move right around about the time you get off work at 5 p.m. Winds are south, 15 to 20 miles an hour. Tonight, though, you're going to have clouds returning because of the low-level jet that is going to bring moisture in from the Gulf out of that south-southeast direction, winds 10 to 15, a low of 55. Tomorrow, though, enjoy the sunshine because it's probably not going to last very long. High temperature of 74, winds out of the south-southwest at 15 to 20 miles an hour. If you go to the extended, you're going to see that Friday and Saturday are the days to look out for because that's when the front will probably move through, and with it, precipitation extremely high, and the chances of thunder, lightning, and all the other good stuff that comes with April severe weather. I'm looking forward to it, but I know many people who have plans for this weekend are not going to be so happy about having to carry an umbrella wherever they go.
Personally, I'm looking forward to just fast-forwarding straight into summer and just having the nice weather.
Gotta like that severity stuff. Keep you on your edge.
Thanks a lot, Amy. And coming up next on Norman Today, our continuing coverage of the Kosovo crisis continues.
Stay with us for more national and world news.
Someone once said, we all come into this world alone, and we leave the same way. But in between, we have the chance to connect and help each other, to find ways you can do something to connect with the people in your community. Call La Points of Light Foundation. Do something good. Feel something real.
I'm Javed Mashkuri. I joined the Peace Corps because it gave me an opportunity to do something worthwhile in a place that was much different than the place that I grew up and knew. When I got to Mali, it blew me away. My job was to train local masons and well diggers to construct safe drinking water wells. Peace Corps showed me what happens when you don't have access to health care. We were providing clean water, which to everyone there is health. And we try to do the same thing here by just providing health care. Compassion, perspective, a sense of adventure. Each and every day, those three things help me get through the day and make me a better doc. It's given me more self-confidence in dealing with patients and other people, and also helps me through the most difficult times because I've already been through a lot of those. I'd recommend the Peace Corps to anyone that was thinking about any job. It'll help them excel and be better at whatever they do. I think in Peace Corps you learn the value of service. You're going to want to be in that position to give service back.
Peace Corps volunteers, changing the world, changing America.
Welcome back to Norman Today. As Day 8 of airstrikes against Yugoslavia get underway, NATO expands its operation with new targets and a new determination.
And as the airstrikes intensify, refugees continue to flee Kosovo. The United Nations says about 100,000 refugees have fled since last week. Serbian television released pictures showing the damage inflicted on Serb targets. NATO commanders say airstrikes have damaged Serbia's ability to launch surface-to-air missiles and destroyed more than half of their advanced MiG-29 fighters. Other aircraft have also been destroyed, including helicopters and MiG-21 fighters. So far, more than 1,700 air raids have been conducted over Yugoslavia. With NATO's bombardment of Yugoslav targets moving into an 8th day, here are the latest developments. At least 3 explosions were heard near the capital of Belgrade early Wednesday. Serbia television is urging people to stay inside. This as NATO forces continue around-the-clock air attacks and alliance members reject a conditional offer from Belgrade to reopen negotiations on Kosovo. President Clinton spoke Tuesday night about the situation in Yugoslavia.
It is a sad commentary indeed that on the edge of a new millennium, there are still people who feel they must define their own self-worth and merit in terms of who they are not, and who believe that their lives only really count not when they are lifting themselves up, but when they are holding someone else down. And sometimes we believe that it is literally legitimate not only to uproot totally innocent civilians from their homes and their villages, but to kill them in large numbers.
The refugee crisis continues to intensify as overwhelmed neighboring states appeal for international aid.
A tobacco lawsuit could cost Philip Morris a bundle. A jury in Portland, Oregon today awarded $81 million to the family of a man who died from lung cancer. Jesse Williams smoked Marlboros for 4 decades before dying of the disease 2 years ago. Philip Morris says it will appeal. This is the second big award against the tobacco maker. Last month, a San Francisco jury awarded more than $51 million to a Marlboro smoker who had inoperable lung cancer. And demonstrations end outside police headquarters in New York. The fatal police shooting of Amadou Diallo sparked 15 days of protest. At least 166 people were arrested, including retired police officers and members of Congress. According to Reverend Al Sharpton, rallies have been planned in the Bronx and in Brooklyn. Sharpton asked protesters to end the demonstrations in front of the Bronx Supreme Court Tuesday because his office expects an indictment by Wednesday.
And in Health Watch this week, many people believe that bottled water may be safer to drink than tap water, but as John Lewis explains, this may not be the case.
A new blood test to detect the skin cancer malignant melanoma is now being tried at over a dozen research centers across the U.S. Melanomas can be treated with surgery, but at some, cancer cells are missed. They can show up months or years later nearly anywhere in the body. Doctors who developed the test at the John Wayne Cancer Institute say the blood test helps identify those at greatest risk for the reoccurrence of skin cancer.
This test, if positive, indicates the patients that will have a more than 40% chance of dying within 5 years, and about almost an 80% chance of having a recurrence within 5 years.
Figures show that the test isn't flawless, though it has been determined that 8 of 10 patients testing negative will not have a return of cancer. Do you think bottled water is better than out of the tap? An environmental group says in some cases, the kind you buy may not be any cleaner than your tap water. The Natural Resources Defense Council tested more than 100 brands of bottled water. The result? 1/3 of the brands contain bacteria or other chemicals exceeding the industry's own standards. Legislation requiring stricter labeling of bottled water is due to be introduced in Congress. With Health Watch, I'm John Lewis.
Coming up next on Norman Today, the Sooner baseball team takes a loss.
Stay with us for Norman Today Sports.
Once, there were a few proud men, men of adventure, men of courage, men who knew the meaning of honor. There still are. The few, the proud, the Marines.
They want to get me, I'm going to be ready to get them.
They just shoot. They don't care who gets in the way.
I want to be respected. This gets me respect, know what I'm saying?
I'm afraid to walk to school, okay?
Yeah, I might die. Everybody dies.
Kids shooting, kids getting shot. They're all victims of gun violence. The killing won't stop unless you help stop it. Call 1-800-WE-PREVENT for free information. Not one more lost life. Not one more grieving family. Not one more.
I don't want to die.
Hi, I'm Beth Usewicz with sports. The OU baseball team fell short last night when they suffered a 13-8 loss to the Arkansas Little Rock Trojans at home. The Sooners committed 5 errors to help the Trojans dish out 14 hits, which brings OU to their straight second loss. This win improves Arkansas Little Rock to 12-18, and OU's record moves to 18-13 overall. At the plate, OU belted out 11 hits and had 5 players finish with 2 hits each, but this attempt could not put the game away. Senior center fielder Bobby Walters hit his 7th home run for the season last night, which ties him with first baseman Casey Bookout for the lead. The Sooners return to action this weekend when they travel to Austin, Texas to take on the Texas Longhorns in a 3-game series. The first pitch is set for 6:30 on Friday. The University of Oklahoma men's basketball team, which finished 22-11 in the 98-99 season and advanced to the NCAA tournament's Sweet 16 for the first time in 10 years, held its annual postseason banquet last night at the Lloyd Noble Center. 3 awards each were given to the co-captains Michael Johnson, a senior point guard, and junior forward Eduardo Nahara. And here's a list of the honors given to other individuals on the team. Student of the Year was given to Renzai Stone. Tim Heskett received the Mr. Hustle Award. Best Defensive Player and Leadership Awards went to Michael Johnson. Ryan Humphrey and Eduardo Nahara received Best Rebounders. Nahara was also honored as the most inspirational player for the Sooners. And Most Improved Player finished up was Michael Johnson and Eduardo received the Most Outstanding Players. Basketball superstar Michael Jordan may be planning yet another return to the sport he's done so much for. Last night, Fox Sports reported that Jordan may return to the NBA as part owner/player for the Charlotte Hornets. It was already known that Jordan had talked with Charlotte and the NBA officials about the possibility of buying a 50% share of the team. However, the rumor of Jordan's possible return to the court has not yet been confirmed. This scenario would include bringing 2 of Jordan's former coaches to the Hornets with him. Former Chicago Bulls coach Phil Jackson will be brought into the coach for the team for 1 year, while former North Carolina University coach Dean Smith would take over as the president, according to Fox. Hornet officials have said no firm dates and have been set for Jordan and the Charlotte officials to meet again. In basketball action last night, Jalen Rose from the Indiana Pacers was ejected from the game for throwing a punch at Patrick Ewing of the New York Knicks. Rose's right landed on the nose of referee Dick Bavetta. Bavetta did finish the game, and the Knicks finished the Pacers at the Market Square Arena 94-93. In other action last night, Boston downed Charlotte, the first loss at home for the Hornets in the last 8 games. The Eastern Conference leading Orlando Magic knocked off lowly New Jersey 100-98. The Mavericks lost yet another one, and the disappointing Washington Wizards dropped to 12-17 on the season. Chicago upsets Philadelphia. The Kings pull out one in overtime over the Utah Jazz, and Golden State shocked the league's leading Portland Trailblazers 93-90. Other than Jordan getting into that big deal, what do you guys think about the other names that might be brought in?
A lot of big names, maybe a lot of 3 people returning to basketball. That could be a big blockbuster deal.
Yes, sure could.
Thanks, Beth.
And coming up in the final segment of Norman Today, a remake of a popular television series is going to the big screen.
We'll be right back.
I forgot to file my taxes.
No problem. I'm a tax preparer, too. We can use IRS e-file to file from here.
This is Mission Control. What's going on up there?
Nice refund. And with IRS e-file, you'll have your refund in half the time it usually takes.
My refund's already in my account. Well, that was a fast round trip.
Ask your tax preparer to use IRS e-file. Click, zip, fast round trip.
It isn't an order or a command. Protocol doesn't require it. The oath of enlistment doesn't refer to it. So why do sailors devote so much time to helping Americans in need? To instituting programs on their behalf? Because when you're in the Navy, you go wherever the battle is.
And finally, a remake of a hit TV show from the late 60s is now hitting the big screen. Bill Tush gets the inside scoop from some of the movie's lead actors. We're sorry about that package. That didn't look... Okay, on to some bigger and better things. What's going on with the weather?
Weather, that's the biggest, best thing that you got going on. You're going to have Friday and Saturday. You're going to have lightning, thunderstorms. Everything's going on. Not much further after that, though.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for joining us, and join us again tomorrow.